What is up, New Beginnings Church? Happy Monday morning to you. Welcome to this devotion series through the Gospel of Luke. Yes, we're back, and you probably need to pause. We're in Luke chapter 12. You haven't read the book of Luke in forever. You know it. And so, because we had 2 weeks with my buddy Shane Willard, it was so fun. We had 1 week talking about really what it meant to be a child of God, was to be a peacemaker. And then we spent the next week after that talking about how Jesus modeled for you just radical peacemaking. And so anyway, it was really, really good. But we're back into the Gospel of Luke, and we're in Luke chapter 12, starting in verse 22. It says that Jesus said to his disciples, he goes, "Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you'll eat, or your body and what you'll wear, because life is more than food and the body more than clothing." Think about the ravens. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or reap. They have no storehouses or barns, and yet God feeds them. How much more valuable you are than the birds? And who of you, by worrying, can add a single hour to your life? Since you cannot do this very little thing, why do you worry about the rest? So great line, famous kind of a line. Don't worry. And if you're not careful, you'll fall into the trap of thinking that this is like that song, "Don't worry, be happy." And it's just like this, just be a hippie and live on the beach and, don't worry about anything. And I don't think that's what Jesus is saying at all here, because he actually gives you a little bit more to chew on. He says, don't worry, and then he has some because. The first because he wants you to consider, I think, is this. He goes, life is more than that stuff. Don't get me wrong. There are some massive categories of life, but life is even more than them. Let me give you an example. Your kids. Your life is more than your kids, right? If your kids move away, if your kids go to school, something, whatever, your life is more than your life is more than your marriage. Your life is more than just your job. Even if you lost your job, some people, again, if they lost that relationship, they think, "Oh, my life is over," and you worry and fixate about things. And so, one of the things that he wants you, I think, to consider is like, no, life itself. Life, existence, consciousness, this whole thing is a really, really big deal. And being alive in and of itself is something really to kind of like be wowed and amazed by. And so, but you're not amazed by life and the existence of life that God has given you, because we get fixated on smaller things that we can just worry about. Now, the next thing he gives you is this. He goes, "No, don't worry, because life is probably bigger than the thing that you're worrying about. But also don't worry, because God knows and God cares." He actually says, think about these birds. He goes, these birds, they ain't sowing or reaping, and you do. You work hard, like you try, you're giving effort, you're doing things. Birds, they don't sow or reap, and they don't even have barns, and yet God feeds them. And how much more value? So you just need to know this. The thing that you're worried about, God already knows, and God deeply cares about you. So it's not like God's absent-minded. You've never prayed a prayer and informed God, and God been like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. Thank you for bringing me in the loop on that." God knows. And you've never had a conversation with God where he's like, "I don't care." No, God deeply, deeply cares. And then the third reason that he gives you for not worrying is really interesting. He goes, does it work? Like, have you ever worried? And then, of course, in Matthew's version, he says, have you ever added a cubit to your measure? Have you ever like grown in height? In this one, he goes, who of you worrying can add a single hour to your life? Meaning, like, did it work? And of course, the crazy part is not only is the answer no, of course it didn't work, because go think about it. The very thing that you were worried about, did all that worry and all that stress and all that sleeplessness, did that actually change the outcome? No, that's the answer. And then the crazy part is that medical science has showed you that when you live in states of worry and stress, not only are you not adding life and time, right? You're actually reducing time and life, because stress wears you out. And so, church, I want you to be a people who deeply care about the things that God has given you. You do sow, you do reap, you do have barns, you give it your all, you give it your very best, because in doing so, we honor God. But after we've given our very best, that's all we can do. And what we have to do is then turn everything over and say, I'm just going to trust the rest with my Heavenly Father. Even if it doesn't go the way that I think it ought to go, I'm just going to trust Him, because God is the giver of life. I'm going to appreciate it for what it is and thank Him for what it is, and then go and do and give my very best. Church, I love you so much. I hope you live a worry-free life today. God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.